possibly the player with the widest potential range of outcomes in this draft. People either love or hate GG Jackson as a prospect. It's easy to see why. As a former #1 recruit that reclassified to college a year early, he's had some major ups and downs from his one-year college career. From putting up impressive scoring numbers to off-the-court controversies, he is a really hard prospect to judge correctly. How good is GG actually? Is he too controversial to draft highly? Let's find out. Born and raised in South Carolina, GG has always looked the part of an elite scorer. As a high schooler, in his sophomore and junior years, he was a key piece driving his school, Ridgeview, to 2 straight state championships. In the 2021-22 season, he was the South Carolina Player of the Year, participated in the 2022 FIBA Under-18 games to win gold, and played for Team CP3 in the EYBL. By the end of his junior year, he was the #1 player in his class, but he was ready to make the move to college then and there, opting to reclassify and join his hometown South Carolina Gamecocks. What followed was a season of dysfunction with an inefficient offensive system and poor offensive chemistry, leading to a widely criticized Instagram Live video made by Jackson. We will get more into that later. However, as even throughout said dysfunction, GG showed flashes of greatness. Let's get into his key traits that will make or break his NBA career right now. So when it comes to his shooting, I think GG is at a pretty good point, all things considered. He isn't knocked down, but he definitely isn't a terrible shooter either. His percentages were pretty mediocre, but the things to consider when it comes to that is that he, 1, does have a pretty good looking shot. And the percentages might be poor for a number of factors outside of his pure ability. So one thing I like to take into account here is how much of a workload does a team put on a player in the offensive end, and what kind of shots are they having the player take. GG was taking the shot a lot of the times down the court, and they weren't always the greatest shots. And some of that is his fault, just for his decision making, but some of that is the way the offense was designed. So it is very easy to see that he could have had some fatigue on the offensive end, and this definitely can negatively impact your shooting percentages. In the NBA, if he ends up on a team that gives him the ability to pick his spots more, I think his percentages will improve. I don't know if he's ever going to be just an uber efficient scorer, but I do think his percentages will get better and he'll be at least a league average shooter, if not even better, because I do think he has some ability here. So in shot creation, GG comes across as very talented in this regard. He has all the moves you really want to see in a player that should be able to create their own shot at the next level. He really looks quite natural when it comes to coming off screens for a mid-range jumper. His fadeaway is very nice. He is very willing and able to pull up for a 3-pointer on a dime. He's got a great spin move, great crossover, really good up and under. He's just got such a wide and diverse range of a skill set when it comes to shot creation. And it's not something you tend to find with prospects who are being ranked in the mid-teens to late teens. I really like what he offers here, and I think that this specific skill set is something that you really need to keep an eye on when it comes to the type of player that becomes an impact scorer in the league. So I have discussed in the past how scoring wings sometimes have the tendency to get tunnel vision. GG Jackson is absolutely not the exception to this. This is one of his more major flaws, and it just simply is the fact that he takes a lot of shots that he does not need to be taking. So he either take a shot early in the shot clock, he'll drive into the paint and just throw something up when there's someone open. His passing is just not really great at all. He sometimes makes some bad reads. A lot of the times it just simply does not pass it in all reality. And so this is another thing that could have something to do with what his role was, but his general passing perception and passing ability has to be improved no matter what by a tremendous margin in the NBA if he wants to be on the court. Because in the modern NBA, a player cannot simply be an ISO scorer that drives at the rim and puts up an inefficient shot. He has to be able to move the ball within the offense. All the players that are on the floor are able to move the ball within an offense. So to me, for GG to be on the floor, a team has to have confidence in him that he isn't going to take a shot that's going to negatively affect the team, but will be able to kick it to a guy who may have a better shot than him. So defensively, I see GG as a bit of a neutral to me. He is not particularly bad and has some good tools on this end, but he also tends to have a lot of lapses that make you a little bit concerned when it comes to his general focus. A lot of times it seems he's ball watching and his guy will just back cut him and score. And a lot of times he tends to miscommunicate with players on his team. I probably sound like a bit of a broken record talking about the South Carolina system, but generally it seems like with the team chemistry, it was just so poor, and GG didn't help that certainly, but it just seems like they were never on the same page on the court, on the offensive or defensive end. And I think for him, the main thing he needs to focus on improving on this end is his general focus, because there are places where he's locked in and he looks like a generally good defender, but that's kind of uncommon. And I do think there's a chance he cleans up this area, becomes a pretty solid player, however, but it's gonna take some work and some focus. So I haven't touched on off the court much with other prospects I've covered, because most of them genuinely haven't had much of a concern on this end, except for one or two. I feel like this is something that needs to be covered for Jackson, as a lot of scouts have this as a major concern. He has all the on-court talent that any of the lottery prospects do, bar the top 3 in my opinion. However, some of his decisions have been questionable to say the least. Very specifically, his outburst where he threw his coaching staff under the bus for not getting him the ball on Instagram Live. To me, I think this is a valid concern for people. I think it shows a level of immaturity that teams don't want to mess with. To not come out and support his teammates and team in general after a tough loss and instead making it about himself is immature. I want to note that he is incredibly young, handed the keys to an offense and being praised by everyone he meets all the time. It would be very easy to get overconfident in his shoes. However, how many players come into the NBA with a similar mentality to what he had in that video, with all the talent in the world, but their off-the-court antics held them back? I mean, we've seen it all the time ever since the beginning of the NBA. Now, obviously, this isn't something that can't be fixed, and we've seen fixed when a player gets the right mentors and adopts the right mentality. But you don't just draft the talent, you draft an individual as a whole. If you think a guy has the potential to hurt team chemistry, you don't draft him unless you're really confident in your locker room. I hope that GG does do some maturing. One of the only things that can hold him back in reality is going to be himself. For what it is worth, I am encouraged with what I've seen from him on this front. Watching some of his pre-draft interviews and the way he's talked about it since then, it seems like he has done some reflecting on mistakes from his past, which is the first step. He seems really pretty self-aware of the things that he's done and is willing to do the work to correct them, which is great. He also seems like he has a solid support system around him with his family that can help guide him through the questions on this end. I personally predict he will get this corrected, but I also think that it's something that needed to be discussed. So when it comes to his comparison, everywhere I look, people are comparing him to Marcus Morris. That's a fine comparison. It's pretty accurate, but Morris was never quite the prospect that GG was. Morris to me came in as a guy who was projected to be a good scoring role player, and eventually did become that. For GG, I think he has a higher ceiling than that, and a lower floor as well. He just doesn't seem like as safe of a pick as Morris was. For me, I'm going to change it up a bit from the status quo, and give him the comparison of Anton Jamison. Now, Anton was a high pick and was insane throughout the prime of his career, so this is more of a top-end comparison for GG if he gets everything right. I personally think this is the type of guy he could be at his best. Not the fastest, but a really strong and athletic scoring wing who can get a bucket at all 3 levels and probably provide a good amount of rebounding as he matures. Anton was a great shot creator and could get to the rim effectively, while also being a bit inefficient and a volume scorer, so to speak, who doesn't do a lot of playmaking, more so just a play finisher. So I see a lot of this in GG's game. That's why I've come to this conclusion for his comparison. So in conclusion, I personally really like GG in the late lottery, or maybe even a bit after that if you can get him there. I think teams have to be smart with the way that they use him early, because I don't think he's going to be immediately ready to be a major contributor, but I do think he has some of the best potential that you're going to find in the teens when it comes to a pick. I think a lot of the flaws he has are a bit overblown due to his excessive workload, poor offensive system in South Carolina, and generally just the dysfunctional situation he was in. It was not a positive environment for him to grow, and realistically, it was a bad decision to go out to college a year early. I think that if he takes one more year and maybe transfer to a different college, next year you're looking at a guy who's a top 10 pick easily, in my opinion. Like I said, he's probably not going to be a guy who is ready immediately, but do not be surprised 5 years down the line when you look back at this draft and say he was the best value pick that there was in the whole first round. I think that's very possible. I think his range of outcomes does include him being a top 5 player in this draft. I'm not necessarily predicting that, but I think it's a possibility. I just think he's got to have the right system, the right coaches, and for a team to understand how to minimize his negative aspects while growing his strong aspects. I think he has a chance to be a phenomenal scorer and play finisher in the league. But with that, I come to the conclusion of this video. If you stuck around here to the end, I appreciate it. This one plus one more prospect profile on Tuesday and the draft will be upon us. And I have a few draft videos in mind, so if you're interested in that, like and subscribe here if you haven't already. Whether you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments, and if you have any additional ideas for videos, let me know down in the comments as well. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Hey, thanks again for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you just saw, go ahead and click one of these videos here to see some more of our content.